all, Tech Jacks here. This video is a video with PowerShell. I had been talking about doing PowerShell for a while now. Since we're going to get into it, let's first talk about how to customize our profile, because once we start using it, we want to make sure that things load up properly, configured, and ready to go right off the jump. So let's get started. Here on the Windows Server 2012 machine that I have, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how we're going to go ahead and customize that particular profile. Now, a little backstory about how profiles work and some of that, because you guys are going to need to know. So PowerShell has almost up to 6 different profiles that can be used or accessed. When we refer to the profile in the PowerShell profile that we're going to use, we're going to refer to the current user, current host. Okay. So PowerShell has a built-in automatic variable that is created when you start PowerShell in any particular shell. And it houses the information to where the profile exists for the shell window that you're using. Now, does that sound like a mouthful? Yeah, it does, because I'm listening to myself say it and I'm like, that's confusing. So let's go ahead and just show it. If we go ahead and launch the profile variable here, you'll see that it has a directory and a path located in it. That path is where our PowerShell ISE profile will reside. So if we went ahead and hit our profile again and hit our dot in order to see some of the properties, methods that are associated with this particular variable or our GM, here are the methods and the properties associated with it. These are the node properties that are created when PowerShell launches. So we're going to go ahead and go back to our profile. We're going to hit our dot. And as you can see, we have all users, all hosts. And there's a little graphical representation with the ISE that makes the ISE, a little bit more handy than the regular shell. Some people might pick and choose one or the other, but I tend to go with the ISE because I like to write scripts. As you can see, if you hover over all users and all hosts, or all users, current hosts, you'll see that there's a subsystem string that shows you that the path of the profile and where it would be. So if we wanted to create or check out the profile for all users, all hosts, and hit enter, we'll see that the directory is the C:\Windows /system32 / everything else that you see. So that's where that profile will reside. But the profile that we would want to use resides in the users documents folder. It is located in the C Windows, C:. So as you can see, it's located in the C:\Windows /system32 and everything else that you see there. But we want to use the one that's associated with the current user, current host. So we're going to go ahead and specify that the current user, current host is the profile that we want to use. And as you can see, this is where that profile would be. And that's the same profile, directory, and path as our regular profile without any particular specific property set and things like that. So we can actually do a real quick test to see if that profile exists there. We're going to hit test path. We're going to type the path, and we're going to go ahead and hit our profile variable, and we want to hit enter. That returned a Boolean value of false. When you use test path tests against the particular directory or file or the path to that file. If any of those things are not available or exist, then you will get a false value. So something is missing, either our directory or that file doesn't exist. So we can go actually see that in our GUI, that here on the documents under Windows PowerShell, there is an empty folder directory for Windows PowerShell. There is no .ps1 file. We have no profile. That is why we received the false. So we want to create a new profile. We want to be able to automatically have our PowerShell load up with customized configurations already in place. One of those customized configurations that we're talking about or could be talking about is like where your prompt goes to in terms of a directory. When we open up our PowerShell window, it defaults to our home drive, which is our c:/users/administrator for .dco2, which is the domain controller. If I wanted it to default to the root of C because I may have scripts or something and stuff there, then, well, how do we do that? Well, we would do that using the profile. And the profile is just a script. You put the information that you want in there, and when it loads up, it runs those items and it sets those configurations for you on startup. So if we wanted to go to the root of C, well, how would we do that? We would go CD for change directory, and we would go ahead and type that in there. And as you can see, we're at our root of our C drive. If we hit list for what's in our directories, we can see that we have a couple of folders here. We have a couple of files here. So how do we automate that? Well, let's go ahead and create a profile and then set that as one of the script items that loads automatically. We're going to go ahead and type new item because we're creating a new item. And what we want to do is go ahead and use that profile for current users, current host. Item type is going to be a file, and we're going to force this. So this should create a new item using that profile variable. We're going to specify it for the property of the current user, current host directory. We're going to use the item type parameter. We're going to set the item type to a file, and we're going to force it. We hit enter and we get feedback output, and that lets us know that we had successfully created that file. If we go here to the directory, you can see here that Microsoft PowerShell has a profile now. So that's the profile that we're going to use to write our customized information. I'm going to go ahead and open that profile. And just because the profile is created doesn't mean it is used, because there's no information here, right? As you can see, we have a blank PS1 for, entitled, unentitled, and we also have one for the PowerShell. There's nothing in there, so it's not going to do anything when we launch. I can close this. You can see that the profile still exists. I'm going to go ahead and open it, and nothing's going to change. So when you create your profile in your particular environment, you may have an issue where when you make a change, you're going to get an error message stating that your execution policy may not allow for you to run scripts on your machine. Execution policy is one of those things that you have to take account for, because by default, the execution policy for PowerShell is set to restricted, which means it doesn't allow PowerShell scripts to run until you set a different or a bypass for that script to run on the machine. In order to see your execution policy, you can type in get execution policy and hit enter. And for this particular machine, you can see that it's set to remote sign. The reason mine is set to remote sign is because I have a group policy set that allows for me to turn on my script execution policy, and I set it to allow local scripts and remote sign scripts. So in my entire domain, if I wanted to run a script in my lab, I can do so because it's set up as remote sign. In your domain, in your lab, it may not be set that way. On your host machine, it may default to restricted. So in order to set yours to a mode that will allow for you to do this demonstration or practice your scripts, you will have to set your execution policy. And you can do that by typing set execution policy. You do a parameter of execution policy, and you can set it to bypass or undefined or unrestricted or remote signed. You just want to go ahead and read up on the ones that you want to do. You want to make sure that your network and everything like that is set up, because you don't want things happening because of you didn't take into account the kind of posture that your network had in terms of security and things like that. It's not a big deal if you have a network that's set off and is segmented from the rest. So if I was to set mine to unrestricted, I'm going to get an error message that's stating that I already have a policy. It's saying that it updated my policy successfully, but the settings were overridden by a policy defining a more specific scope. So That's why mine is set up that way, because I already have it set up through a group policy. But keep in mind that if you're seeing issues with being able to run your scripts or run your profiles or have your profiles runs, then make sure your execution policy is set up properly to allow for your system to run a PowerShell script on startup of your shell. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to launch this again. We're going to go ahead and go into our profile, and what we're going to do is set a change directory to the C:\\. We're going to go ahead and hit save. I went ahead and saved that, and as you can see, when we loaded this PowerShell window, we defaulted to our home directory, C:\users\administrator. I'm going to go ahead and close. As you can see, this is the PowerShell profile.ps1 file. It's a script. It's going to run line 1 of this script, which is going to be change directory and set it to the root of C. I'm going to go ahead and open up my PowerShell window now. And as you can see, we got success. So now, anytime I load up PowerShell using the ISE on this machine, it will default to the root of the C drive. And then I can just start getting busy with any of the work that I need to do. So that saves me time, right? I don't have to hit CD and this and that. Or if it was a different drive, if it was a network drive, if it was a drive set up on the share for scripts and all that, and you guys wanted to navigate to it, you can set that automatically if you know that that's where you're going to spend the majority of your time, or it's a location that you want to move from because it's easier for you to navigate from. Another particular, I guess, option that I like to set is to import particular modules that I may use that I've created or that I've set up on my machine. Let's take a quick look at the modules that we have. I'm going to go ahead and hit get module. And as you can see, we have 3 modules that are loaded by default. One is the script and one is set up as a manifest. We're not going to get into that right now because that's going to eat up into a lot of time. So this is a domain controller, and it has the Active Directory module already installed on it. Modules are usually installed and loaded or able to be loaded automatically when you put them in a particular directory. If we went ahead and did a quick search for our PS module path variable, this will show us where all of the locations that variable will look for modules. Okay, so if I wanted to create a customized module of tools, say for a help desk or myself, I can put it in this directory here, and it's separated by colons, or I can put it in this directory here that goes into program files in the Windows PowerShell modules, or I can go into this particular path that's in C:\Windows. So it's 3 directories that PowerShell is looking for any module that I would have the ability to import or load for my benefit. If I had functions set up in it, if I had scripts and all that stuff, well, I can use any of those particular 3 directories to have access to. If I do get module list available, this will show me the modules that reside in all of those particular directories in one condensed list. This might take like 2 or 3 seconds, but once we see the list, we'll see that I do have options and I do have access to multiple other modules. Active Directory would be one of them. App Locker would be one of them. Bits transfer, branch, Hyper-V module for controlling Hyper-V and managing Hyper-V. We got net adapter. We got a lot. So let's go ahead and import some automatically. The next line of my particular profile, I'm going to go ahead and type import module. I'm going to go by name. And let's say I'm going to import Active Directory by default. And let's see what else. Let's put some. Let's put like Hyper-V. Let's put IPAM. And let's put one more. Let's say storage. This is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to hit force. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So if you remember, when we hit get module And I don't know why I keep saying hit, but when we typed in get module, we saw that these were the modules that we had loaded in our current session. And we hadn't loaded or imported any module manually. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the PowerShell window. You can see the PowerShell profile. You can see that the information is saved there. So when we go ahead and load PowerShell, we should have those modules loaded automatically. You can see it says loading Active Directory for one of them. I'm going to go ahead and type in get module. And as you can see, I have modules loaded by default now. I have the Active Directory module loaded, I have Hyper-V, the IPAM server, and I have storage. Those are the ones that we designated. So if I had custom modules again, like I said, I can have those automatically load with me and can start typing in commands right away and not have to import the module and worry about that anymore. So another change that I like to do is for my listing of particular elements in a property. So say for instance, you work in an organization in which you use SCCM or some other application management software that queries Active Directory for a security group or a distribution list in order to provision and entitle software. It goes to the security group, it gets the members in that security group, it pulls them to a collection of some type, and then over a course of time, it sends out software to all the machines that it got from that group. Well, if you have a machine and you want to see all the groups that that machine belongs to, say that machine is getting 50 pieces of software, if you went by the default way that PowerShell showed you things, it might not show you all of them. And the reason because of that is because of the format enumeration limit. That's a variable that's automatically loaded by default. And I went ahead and typed it in, and as you can see, there's a default value for it of 4. So again, how does it come up? Well, let's go ahead and do a quick demonstration of something like, say, get service. We're going to go name, and we're going to go ahead and let's see, we're going to go ahead and type like win just to get everything that starts with WIN. We could do a format table. And let's sort by name, independent. And let's go ahead and do auto size. So as you can see, under Win MGMT for Win Management for WMI, you can see that it's not showing us all of the elements that are a part of this list. There's a dot, dot, dot. A dot, dot, dot means that there's not enough room to display all of the particulars in that that list. If we went ahead and got rid of the auto size, we're still probably going to see the same behavior. The only real change is that the space between the columns have widened because the auto size tries not to allow for any waste of space. But as you can see, there's still a dot, dot, dot. So we can't see what the additional information is in this particular dependent services of the Windows MGMT. So let's go ahead and set the FS enumeration. Format enumeration. I'm going to set it equal to -1 because -1 gets rid of any limit on how many elements can show up. And we're going to go back, hit dependent. We're getting the same thing. That's because something is wrong. Let me check. Let me make sure I set it. I set it to -1. That's correct. And then we're going to go ahead and go back up. And we went ahead and hit the auto size this time. And as you can see, we're getting an additional element showing up. So why is it that when we just did it before, after I set the enumeration limit, so notice, I set the enumeration limit -1. I went ahead and ran the same command I did before, but we were still getting a dot, dot, dot. So I verified that the enumeration limit was set to -1, and then I did the same parameter or the same command again, but I did the auto size. The auto size is where it's at because the auto size then truncates and well, it didn't truncate anything, but it did eliminate the extra space, and then it auto sized it to where it showed me all the elements because the enumeration, the format enumeration limit now gives us the ability to see everything before. Before, when we did auto size, we still didn't see it, right? I have the auto size here. We hit enter and we had dot, dot, dot. So I tend to put format enumeration limit equal to -1 in my startup because I don't like to have to deal with not being able to see additional elements in the list because of it being set to a limit of 4. Now, again, anything that you set up in your profile will be subjective to yourself and what you want to do. I'm just showing you guys some stuff that I might do, here and there because in my particular work environment or what I do, it comes in a lot handy. The other one that I tend to change is I tend to change my window title. Why? Well, because I feel like it and I want to. And it gives me a reason to learn a little bit more about how to manipulate some of the things going on in the shell. So, for kicks, I tend to go ahead and set it up so whereas I can have my name right over here where it says administrator, Windows PowerShell ISE, I want TechJack showing up. So what I go ahead and do is I go ahead and type host, I type the rest for the UI, the raw UI, the Windows title. And for that, I go ahead and set that to TechJack's PS for PowerShell. Now, if I go ahead and highlight the line 4 and hit F8 to run just that line, you're going to see up here that the administrator Windows PowerShell ISE should change. So when I launch my PowerShell, I'm going ahead and save it. I get the default C drive. I get all the modules that I want automatically loaded up. I import them. I'm in the root of C. I have my name up at the top, and I have my enumeration limit set, and I'm ready to go. So this is a video on how to set up and how to configure some basic stuff in your PowerShell profile. There's a lot more that you can do. It's going to be up to you to decide what it is that you want to change or what might be beneficial. You can look up a best practice guide for some things that you might or might not want to do. But I hope that this demonstration has made you guys a little bit more familiar and open to using it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate all you guys watching. I hope to get out a lot more content. Thank you. And I'll talk to you guys next time.